At the age of 18, I volunteered across in India and was working teaching English to some street children over there. And there was one moment that just really broke my heart. Me and one of the other men that I was working with were walking down the main street in Kolkata in mid-daylight, and this man came up and began speaking to us, and we just assumed he was practicing his English, as a lot of people did at that time. He began speaking, saying hello, we began chatting away to him, and then after a moment or two he began pulling out these pictures, and he said to us, are you boys looking for girls? You want girls for sex? And we were just absolutely disgusted, kind of walked away. But it was something that sort of hung over me, and I couldn't believe that this was going on in the world. And as I said, I was sort of young, I was only 18, still quite naive, and didn't realise that child trafficking was such an issue in the world. And then the more I began to look into it, the more horrified I was, and the more I realised that I had to do something. And began to see that there's over 27 million people in the world who are in modern day slavery, which is more people than used to actually be in slavery during the actual slave trade. The more I looked into it again, I discovered that within Calcutta, within India, there's about 1.2 million children who are within the brothels there, and that's just a small conservative estimate of the children who might be there. So it's something that really kind of stuck in my heart, and I thought I have to do something to try and raise awareness on this evil practice that's happening. When I went to university, I studied theology, and that was a great opportunity to be able to explore the caste system and to look at different religions within the world. And I was also able to study English literature, which again was a fantastic way to be able to work on my writing skills and to really hone those. And once I finished that, I went on to do development studies at master's level, and that was a great way to look at development within different ways in different countries within the world. So working within India, a lot of it was working with the poorest of the poor, and I just assumed quite naively that was because just the way things were. But the more we got to know the families that we worked amongst, began to realise this word kept cropping up saying that they were Dalits from the Dalit caste, and I sort of had no real idea of what that meant. So we began to have conversations with a lot of people asking what it meant to be a Dalit, what this idea was. And we discovered within India there was a thing which was called the caste system, which very kind of broadly sort of explained was that there's 4 different castes that people can belong to, and that can affect basically who they marry, the jobs that they can do, the level of education that they get. And there was sort of the highest caste, which were the Brahmins, working right down to sort of the bottom castes. But below them was another caste, which were called originally the untouchables, which is where in English we get the word untouchables from, who are now known as the Dalits, or the broken or crushed people. And there's basically 250 million Dalits within India, and over the centuries they've been denied access to education, to healthcare, even going sort of to the local wells in the villages. They wouldn't have been allowed to because they were seen as making other people unclean if they came into contact with them. So I began to hear this term Dalit, and I realised that these people were all from this caste, and that was the explanation for why they're in a lot of the situation that they were in. And as I began to study it, I went to university and managed to do my master's actually looking at the caste system within India and trying to explore how this could happen and how people have been treated over the centuries. And it's something that has been really challenged. There's been a lot that's been done to try and challenge the caste system, and especially the discrimination, but particularly in the villages and a lot of places, it's still something that's very rife and something that happens, a lot of discrimination because of that. It's claimed that if you're a Dalit, you're 27 times more likely than anybody else in the world to be trafficked or to be a subject of exploitation or put into human slavery. Last year, me and my wife were across in India again, and we were working within an orphanage over there for a charity called Life Association. And we sort of headed across, and going from being in Kolkata sort of the first time for 6 months, we went for a year into Andhra Pradesh, into one of the local villages. And the main reason for me was that we really wanted to go back and to do something, to work among the Dalit people, to really be able to sort of stand alongside people who've been discriminated against for lots of time. And for me personally, having trained as a teacher within the UK, I feel that education is such an important tool to be able to give to people. So I went across with the intention of being able to teach them, and especially within sort of the villages within India, to be able to speak, to have an English education is such a massive advantage. So by being able to be there to work alongside the children, to sort of spend time with them in the orphanage, teaching sports, teaching English, different things, it was a good way to be able to kind of invest in them, to invest in the teachers as well, to really help them to have a brighter future than the one that they might have had sort of only possible because of the background that they were born into. The novel begins with Rachel, his wife, arriving to identify his body in the middle of this very dodgy kind of dingy basement in the middle of Calcutta. There's kind of traffic kind of blaring outside. There's cockroaches sort of climbing the walls, and she has to discover her husband's body there. And she's obviously grieving, very kind of broken by discovering what she has done. But at the same time, she's being interrogated by the police, trying to discover what she knew about her husband's life and all of the activities that they're claiming that he was involved in. And as it begins to unfold, she begins to realise that there might be some hidden truths to what she's discovering. So Rachel's in this hot, dingy basement in the middle of Kolkata. Her husband's body is there present on the table, and she just identified it. And she's obviously got these huge emotions coming out at seeing her husband's body there, discovering that he's died, but also having these huge questions as to why he's there, what he's doing in India. And as she's beginning to try and process so many different emotions, she's being questioned by the police officers who know far more than she does about her husband's secret life. And as the questions come out, she begins to realise there's quite a pointed edge to them, and trying to interrogate to see what she knew about what was going on. This scar tissue is structured in quite an unusual way. It's basically written so that the reader begins to see these two different worlds colliding. So one of the chapters begins with Rachel and her beginning to explore discovering her husband's body, what was going on, and it looks back at some of the memories that they shared together. But every second chapter is a letter written by her husband Rob before he passed away, and he's basically explaining his hidden past and what he'd been through and why he's done some of the things that he has done. So we begin to have Rachel on her journey, discovering and trying to find out who her husband really was, and at the same time we get his side of the story as well. The smell of incense hung sickly sweet in the air, but it was too rich, too strong, a poor attempt to cover the aroma of decay which filled the room. Every breath became more constricted as the heat intensified, sapping the little of my strength that remained. My temples throbbed. An incessant blaring of car horns from the traffic outside did nothing to soothe them. I gripped the gnarled wooden table behind me for support, closing my eyes as I tried to blow the palpable stench of death from my nostrils. It can't be Tom, just a mistake. Can't be Tom, just a mistake. Can't be Tom, just a mistake. These few words had become my mantra in the last 22 hours. They were the only thing helping to focus my senses and stop me losing the small feeling of control I so desperately clung to, like a piece of debris in the ocean without which I would drown.